Oh.
Okay, it is 3 o'clock and time to start our study session, and we're going to look at the Parks and Rec Master Plan, and I'll look at Mr. Scragg to see if he has any opening comments before we turn it over to Mr. Hammond.
Sure. I am anxious to turn it over to Jeff, but just as a little bit of background, you may recall we did a park master plan, brought in a consultant, conducted community input exercises, and that plan was adopted in 2018. And, a lot of times you hear that plans just draw dust on a shelf, and I assure you that's not the case with respect to the park master plan. You may recall that it was 440 pages long, had a lot of narrative, had a lot of good background information, but it was a little difficult to call out all the different recommendations out of that plan. And so staff went through and itemized them and identified specifically 187 different recommendations across the various parks in our system. And then we worked with the City Commission at the time to identify about 12 criteria to be applied, and weighting those criteria to then create a detailed priority list. So when we completed that exercise, we adopted the priority list by resolution, and that's what staff has been working from ever since. So as I mentioned, 187 different items on that list. They are prioritized 1 through 187, and then we started looking at those. Okay, there's a commonality here, whether it's paint or maintenance or whatever it might be, and then kind of grouping those. So Jeff and his staff have been working at that exceptionally hard, and have a lot of good information to report about our past progress as well as what lies ahead. So I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Straight. Jeff Hammond, Parks and Recreation Director. Last presentation I gave to you regarding this subject, the master plan, was September 12th of 2022. And at the time, we talked about a lot of things that we had on our plate for 22 and for 23. And today I have about 3 parts of this presentation for you. And one is what we've accomplished over the past year, what we currently have on our plate now, and then what we have to look forward to in 2024. I gave myself an hour for this. However, I noticed I do have 56 slides. A lot of them are images, a lot of visuals. However, I don't want to rush myself, and I don't want to rush you to receive it and allow you the opportunity to ask questions. There are some future opportunities to follow up or to continue the presentation for future study sessions in the future. So if we have to pick this up at another conversation, we can do that. Starting with tennis, we've had a lot of tennis improvements along the city. Jerry Ivy tennis courts were recently completed in August by USD 305, and those were done by their team, and they were fully funded by USD 305. And they look great. There's some pictures in there of that. We did add signage to the courts to distinguish which were school courts and which were public courts. And they also addressed the basketball court, and the basketball court was kept, and they resurfaced the basketball court floor and painted it. It looks really great. I have a future slide here about sand volleyball courts, and I'll get to that when we get to that slide. The tennis complex, which is at Kenwood Park, has been used quite a bit. This past weekend, the 5A state tennis tournament was held there. It was hosted by the USD 305 by Ryan Stewart. I talked to him today. He stated that they had many compliments about the facility, and their tournament went really well. The weather was not as great as they hoped it to be, but they had a great tournament.
So if I could add one thing, Commissioners, I assume you recall that the Jerry Ivy courts used to be ours, and they were in need of overhaul. Maintenance is probably an understatement. We were able to negotiate an arrangement where USD 305 could expand and continue to commit to have the same number of courts available to the public, have it be their facility for practices and tournaments, and then kind of a win-win. That allowed us to redirect our efforts elsewhere and let them improve those facilities, which I think turned out great.
They did. They looked great. The tennis complex at Kenwood Park, as I said, the 5A state championship. There is one warranty item that will be addressed in the spring. It's the information we're being shared with us from the court contractor. Over the 12 to 18 months, you'll still see some changes in the post-tension concrete while it continues to cure. So that caulk joint that's in between the cast-in-place concrete and the post-tension concrete has minute changes in it. So when they finalize the caulking, they'll come back in the spring, which will be about that 18-month period. It opened earlier this year in February or March. They were done with construction in November of 2020. Does that be 2021? And I'm sorry, 2022. I had some of my notes here. Staff were working to get, we did seed the site in the spring. We had some inconsistent watering with that, and we're getting back after that today to reseed many areas of that site so we can get better grass for the spring. And we had some erosion we found that we're also addressing that today as well, starting today. And then recently I presented to you regarding the bathrooms, the bathhouse. Facility staff are started this week meeting with the plumber, meeting with masons to get that project started so we can have a bathhouses that would support that facility by the end of this year, and then into spring next year for tennis season, and have those bathrooms used for the site. I think I made this in other presentations, but those bathrooms will be seasonal in nature. The bathhouse will be seasonal, it'll be winterized and then de-winterized. There are year-round bathrooms next to the bathhouse that are part of that former concession site of the pool. So those are year-round bathrooms. So there'll always be bathrooms there year-round. Salina pickleball courts coming along pretty nicely. If you recall, the pickleball courts at Oakdale Park were funded by a group of interested parties who wish to give that to the city, give it to the community to have pickleball courts in Salina. They have 10 courts that will be installed. They are putting up fencing today. Tomorrow they are pouring the remainder of the sidewalks. There would not be that post-tension concrete. And finishing up, and I think we'll be possibly painting courts in the next 2 to 3 weeks. They've been moving along pretty fast.
Were there any conditions with that gift, like, use of the courts or scheduling, or, do they have plans for tournaments and things, or it's just open and we will manage?
It was truly a gift to the community. They wanted to not have any recognition related to that. They wish to stay somewhat anonymous about their gift. Mm-hmm. They just want to see the improvement. They recognize pickleball as a up-and-coming sport and saw the need and saw the desire to have pickleball, and they made it happen.
If somebody wants to organize tournaments there, then is that doable?
There is I do keep regular contact with a pickleball interest group. I think they would be interested. I've already thrown out the idea to them and thinking about a pickleball tournament in the spring. I'm not sure how organized they are, if they wish to do that or not. They love their leagues, men's night, women's night. I'm not sure if they're ready for a tournament yet, but I know I threw it out to them to consider a tournament.
Thanks.
As I mentioned in my notes here under pickleball, we did have some really favorable competitive quotes come in for demolition of not only the tennis court space at Oakdale, but as also the former skating rink at Oakdale Park and also the Sunset Courts. And we able to jump on a demolition opportunity for the tennis courts at Oakdale Park, and we had them all removed, which allowed us to do some really to do something better. Rather than putting a pickleball court on top of the existing tennis court slab, we were able to bring in courts and make the improvement and construct courts that were at a normal elevation as compared to the rest of the park. It also allowed us to increase the square footage a little bit and not be restricted to the existing tennis court slab size. So we were able to give a little bit of extra overrun area and also some additional sidewalks around the pickleball complex to do that. And that addition was a change order of $29,000, and that $29,000 additional was also funded by the group of donors who wish to make that happen. Sand volleyball, as I mentioned, Jerry Ivy Park, sand volleyball, as part of the land that was deeded over to USD 305 for them to improve tennis courts at Jerry Ivy Park. The sand volleyball courts that were there were sacrificed. We would like to have sand volleyball back at Jerry Ivy Park. We want to push it a little bit to the east and have it in a similar site, but just a little further away from the tennis courts. We would like to improve upon our previous courts, having a better sand, having better nets, having better standards or posts to mount that net to. It'd be 2 courts that we're looking at. We're currently having someone design those and engineer them for them, so we have a set of plans and specifications to work towards. It's our intent if we can try to do that in-house with our staff that we have, and working towards that. You can see the image there for sand volleyball includes some drainage, so we can ensure we have proper drainage through that sand volleyball court. Painting and picnic tables. We've done a considerable amount of painting within our park system, most notably picnic shelters. Every picnic shelter has been painted on the exterior of that. So when we're talking about exterior of the picnic shelters, that's the posts, that's the fascia, the soffit, and the gable ends, if they have any gable ends. The areas that were exposed to sunlight, moisture, that they were all painted a dark brown color. They all have some continuity to them. They all look the same. Also, we were working with the Ellsworth Correctional Facility to paint lumber. We purchased lumber and we had it shipped up there. Well, actually, we transported ourselves up there. They painted it. They routed all the edges. We received that lumber back just before summer, and we had seasonal staff deploying all that lumber into picnic tables in our system. So as of now, as of 2 weeks ago or so, every picnic table has new lumber, newly painted lumber, and we're working now on the benches. We just started benches maybe 2 to 3 weeks ago after we stopped. We still have a seasonal employee who's sticking around, and them and our full-time staff are working on park benches to get 2x4s on those park benches with that new paint. Some additional items were painted that we identified: gazebos, arbor. If you recall, there's a gazebo at Sunset Park, there's a gazebo at Oakdale Park, there's a gazebo at Meadowlark Park, and those are all painted that dark brown color as well. There are some other items that we've identified that do need to be painted in addition. We're talking about smaller things: sign frames, sign holders, dumpster corrals. We still have a lot of, we still have trash enclosures or dumpster enclosures that are raw wood, and we want to be somewhat more continuous across our park system with keeping that paint. So we've identified more painting opportunities, and we'll be doing that in 2024 once the weather breaks, since outdoor painting is kind of difficult after Thanksgiving or so. So let's see. As I said, we'll be painting. We painted Indian Rock Lodge. We have scheduled to paint Friendship Center. We had that gentleman that we identified and got a low quote for painting of Friendship Center. However, painters are, I guess, competitive these days, and he had no time for us on his schedule. So we do have a project out there for that pay one company to paint Friendship Center, and that'll be done in early or late spring as well. So grills, drinking fountains, all the drinking fountains have been replaced. I think there's 18 drinking fountains that were replaced to a modern standard, which you'll see in the image on the slide. All the grills in our park system have been replaced. And those are the two models that we chose, whether it be a small grill or a large grill. The large grills were used for some of the bigger shelters. Park signage, all the destination park signage has been replaced, from the older wood signs to the new blue signs. As I recently reported, there will be some signage opportunities to change on Berkley Family Recreational Area once Wilbur Field and Tower Field. Wilbur Field moves to Tower Field and Pestinger Family Stadium changes. That'll be an opportunity to change those as well, or to replace those as well. Also, we've been working with our Central Kansas Disc Golf Club. They've been very instrumental in helping deploy some new signs, new disc golf signage at Thomas Park, and which is a master plan item. To rectify that, number 47 on the list is park signage, or I'm sorry, disc golf signage. And the new signage has been deployed at Thomas Park and will be working towards Lakewood Park, and that'll be completed before the end of the year. Gypsum Hill Cemetery signage. The signage has been placed at the Glen Street entrance, and I believe as of now it will be installed at Iron Street or Iron Avenue. It was probably last week it was done, but it was we have a third entrance into Gypsum Hill Cemetery, and that's on Marymount, and that is on order, and that'll be in next year to put a new park sign there. The Marymount Arch sign that was previously at Marymount entrance for the Gypsum Hill Cemetery is going to be refurbished and reused in a columbarium area at the cemetery. And Gypsum Hill also had an improvement to Marymount entrance to make it a little more gradual, and that was done as part of our concrete improvements, which I'll get to in a little bit. We're working on flagpoles. There are 3 flagpoles located at Gypsum Hill Cemetery, and we are getting ready to to order some new flagpoles and plan on getting them installed as well. Jumping over to playgrounds and mulch. We have 4 different types of surfacing that we have in our playground system. And I gave you images of the 4 different types. The shredded rubber mulch looks darn near similar to the engineered wood fiber mulch. The recently installed Lakewood Playground has the pour-in-place rubber surfacing. I wanted to give you examples of what each looks like. Rubber mulch, we had a grant this year which paid for 50% of the cost for the rubber mulch. It was from recycled tires, and it can be colored any color, almost any color you want. We have that in stock. We had that delivered recently, and that'll be deployed this winter at 4 different playgrounds that have currently rubber mulch. It'll be brought into the playground, and we bring the surfacing up to a desired level for that playground. This year, we've also deployed all the engineered wood fiber mulch in several playgrounds. We have a little bit more to go to make sure the entire playground surface area is at a proper level or desired level that we wish for it to be. The 2024 grant opportunity for rubber mulch has not been released yet. However, it's our intention to, we would like to reapply for that grant to start converting some of the sand playgrounds to rubber mulch. It's going to require a lot of rubber to do that, 8 to 12 inches of rubber mulch, but that's something we're looking into for 2024. Quick conversation about the different price levels. Engineered wood fiber mulch is the least expensive way to provide the proper surfacing for playgrounds. Rubber mulch is about 10 times more expensive. However, it lasts considerably longer than engineered wood fiber mulch. Engineered wood fiber mulch, or EWF, is about a 3-year lifespan, and we have to refresh it and add more. So as we address these, it's going to turn into an annual maintenance item.
Does that wood mulch attract insects, termites?
I do not believe so. I have to look
Quantity
to
like
staff to
that,
see if, according to our playground safety inspector, no, it does not attract insects or termites. The playground replacement plan intends to address some of the sand surfacing. Sand surfacing is not a 100% ADA accessible surface. We have, let's see, 5 playgrounds remaining with sand. Oxbow, Riverside, Bill Burke, Schilling, Glenifer Hill, and Centennial North have sand surfacing. And with that grant funds, we'd like to try to remove the sand and add in rubber mulch to Schilling and to Riverside Park. So with our playground replacement plan, we're trying to address older aged playgrounds, address the sand surfacing, bring them to a modern standard. Typically, playgrounds are funded from the Special Parks Fund, which is funded from alcohol sales tax. Since 2017, the playgrounds completed have been Sunset, Oakdale, Berkley Family, Phillips Park, Woodland Park, Hawthorne Park, and most recently, Lakewood Park. We currently have Oxbow Playground as next on our list. We did a request for proposals. We currently are reviewing those requests for proposals, and hopefully have that before you sometime this year. Next is Bill Burke Park, and then Indian Rock Park. Shelter house repairs on the sub-CIP list for this year was replacing posts or poles in shelter houses. We started with Jerry Ivy. We did a Jerry Ivy replacement of poles. We didn't actually replace the poles. We added a steel structural element to that, to the existing post, put in a new concrete footer, which carries the load better. Our building department requires a structural sign-off on the design for any shelter house. Next would be a shelter at Oakdale Park, and then Bill Burke will be addressed. There's 2 shelters at Bill Burke. We need to address a similar method and probably replace some posts at Bill Burke Park this spring. And there's some images of shelter house repairs that we did at Jerry Ivy Park. Oakdale Skating Pond demolition on the agenda today is that proposed demolition of the former skating pond at Oakdale Park. Sunset Park, tennis courts, and horseshoe area will be next on the demolition list. I provided some estimated costs of those demolitions at those locations. Those will be done at the same time. And we plan on moving forward with those projects to allow for future opportunities or future improvements to be done at Sunset Park. Got a few slides here of completed concrete improvements. Phase 1 and Phase 2. Phase 2 is wrapping up right now, Concrete improvements phase 1 was finished early summer, and we addressed quite a few things. Some additional ADA parking lots at Oakdale Park, some parking lots at Lakewood Park, quite a bit of work at Sunset Park to add 2 sets of parking areas, one near the playground and one near the Veterans Memorial, and then having the proper connecting sidewalks from parking to the various features. Phase 2 was additional parking, ADA parking specifically for some neighborhood parks, Pacific Park, Riverside Park, Schilling Park. There was a sidewalk that connects Kenwood Park to Oakdale Park, and from Oakdale to Kenwood to the water park. And they are getting finished. They were hoping to be finished last week with Jerry Ivy. However, the rain that we had recently kind of set them back a little bit. At Jerry Ivy, they put in connecting sidewalks to connect to the smaller shelters on the east side. They replaced the shelter concrete pad under the large north shelter.
Where's the parking for the Veterans Memorial planned? Is there something identified? Is there a location identified for that extra parking?
For Sunset?
For Sunset, it says the Veterans Memorial parking.
Yes, that was installed earlier part of this year. There's 4 parking spots just to the south of the southwest of the Veterans Memorial. And then from there, there's a connecting sidewalk that brings you to the existing sidewalk that brings you right into the Veterans Memorial.
That's just 4 spaces.
I believe it's 4, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think 2 ADA and 2 non-ADA spots. So I gave you a few slides of concrete improvements to give you an idea of each of the spots has white paint marking, and there's also an ADA sign indicating that it's a ADA acceptable space. It also has an unloading zone in each. Additionally, at Sunset, they also replaced 1 triangle median. We did a stamped concrete project at that where Sunset Drive comes into Sunset Park. Phase 3 concrete improvements is currently out to bid. The bid opening is November 9th. That includes sidewalk connectivity for the Kenwood Park Tennis Center, where we had some inconsistent sidewalks coming around the site from the east. We're going to make those connections to the west and connect those to the parking lot of the new parking lot of the tennis center, and also connect anybody that may be walking across from Tony's Pizza Event Center, and they can come across the crosswalk and then connect to the sidewalk that is not there now that we propose, and then they can walk to the entrance of the tennis center. Additionally, Indian Rock Park will have a significant amount of paving and pavement done for parking. It's at the part of it's at the Indian Rock Lodge on top of the hill. And then there's also some additional sidewalks on the north end to support the bathrooms and the shelter house that's there. There will be 2 sets of parking lots there as well. We're talking 2 spots and 4 spots. We're talking a few spots, but ADA parking for that area as well.
It needs it. Is the erosion blanket, is that all up around the shelter house itself?
That's up around the Indian Rock Lodge.
Yeah.
So we have water
Pretty bad up there.
Yeah, the intent is to, right now, currently, how it's designed is there's 2 ways to enter into the lodge parking lot. We are going to eliminate one of those areas, and that's where we're going to bring in soil and remove gravel, bring in soil, and put that erosion blanket on. So that'll be the erosion area, because it constantly does get erosion concerns to it, that area. So there'll just be the one entrance for the lodge.
Okay.
Is Salina Tennis Center the official name of the tennis center?
I've been calling it Salina Tennis Complex.
But has an official name been designated?
We have not brought to you any official name for the facility.
I think that is the consensus with Salina Tennis Alliance, but we haven't done anything formal in terms of designating that. If there's naming related to sponsorship, we certainly would bring that forward.
Yes. A small chart here, or small bullet points of some of the ADA-related improvements of concrete, picnic tables. I'm sorry, not of all the master plan, the ADA-related improvements of the master plan. ADA picnic tables are at each shelter that can be reserved. Some shelters are rather small. But we are working towards having an ADA picnic table located at each shelter. We have dedicated ADA parking. We've made some improvements for that dedicated ADA parking in various parks. Working towards sidewalk connectivity for bathrooms, parking, and shelters, and playground ramps. We haven't addressed every playground ramp. Originally, there was 18 playground ramps that needed to be addressed, and we're working towards those as we do concrete improvements and we get into those parks. Yes, sir.
Back up,
That's
because
fine.
I'm interested in the Indian Rock Shelter. When you say restrooms, there are going to be restrooms up there where the shelter is? Is there water and sewer up there? I mean, the facility really needs that kind of accommodation, but I can see it also being an expensive problem.
I think Jeff's reference was to the existing bathrooms on the north end,
On the
at the
north,
bottom
down,
of the hill.
halfway down the
But
hill.
then there is an Indian Rock Shelter as part of the master plan that's kind of a big ticket item that we'll be getting to here.
We have discussed that a couple
Yeah, we
times.
do. There is a future slide. I had some speaking points, and I can speak to it now. There is a large ticket item and a few different items on the master plan relating to the lodge that's on top of the hill, and to do it similar to what we do Friendship or we do Carver Center, where to be a community center. It has a kitchenette or a kitchen. It has bathrooms. You are correct. There is not much utility in there other than electric and water. We don't have sewer up there. And so that would be something we would need to address.
A whole different and larger project.
Correct. And then my slide later on you'll see is Indian Rock Lodge is almost like a mini master plan required for that park, because there's more than there's several things that we need to address, whether it be an overlook to overlook the city. There's lots of improvements that we
If
can
I'm
do.
remembering correctly, there were a couple of really fine design ideas for up there, and it is a special spot, so.
It is a special spot.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're fine.
That's great.
Park bathroom enhancements and modernization. Staff spent facility staff did a lot of work at Billburg Park and spending a large part of their summer renovating, refreshing the existing bathrooms at Billburg Park, and also providing the utility infrastructure for the two prefabricated, pre-constructed bathrooms that we purchased as part of the Billburg improvement. It was quite extensive, but if you've seen those bathrooms, there are some images on the next slide that show some of the examples of the quality of work that we're doing. The textures, the finishes, the colors, those are similar choices that we will see in the tennis bathrooms that we're currently getting into now.
Has the ramp at the South Billburg bathroom been completed?
Not as of now, no. We have a contractor selected and contracted to do that. It has not been completed as of today. But it will. It is on our plate. It is on the contractor's plate to do. theoretically, well, I wouldn't say theoretically. My goal is to have the tennis bathrooms wrapped up before New Year's Eve or before New Year's, before the new year, so we can get into Oakdale Park. Oakdale Park is our next bathroom improvement plan, and that's where we want to go next. Jerry Ivy Memorial Park and Pond. The demolition of the pond was completed at the end of September. As I went over there last Thursday or Friday, and the grass looks really good. It's still pretty young grass. I wouldn't advise walking on it yet until we can get a mow, maybe in the spring. Park staff has some site cleanup to do. The bushes to the north of the pond, we're going to remove those overgrown cedars that are there. We're going to remove a few trees along the east side that are had some damage from wind over the years, and we're also going to add rock, landscaping rock to that area as well.
What about, I've noticed that they left the 2 layers of the original walls. Is that the way it's going to stay, or are we going to do some improvements there?
Are you referring to the area to the west where the sidewalk is?
Yeah.
That'll be something that we address when we look at a replacement or improve a water feature to go back into Jerry Ivy Pond. There's a slide coming up, I believe, that states some of our objectives with the design and engineering for a water feature at Jerry Ivy Park, and that's one of those items to address, to remove all that concrete wall, to put in a new sidewalk,
Well, they left that to hold the ground there.
yes. Yeah, there's some of the original pond space. They did remove 2 feet approximately of the bags. They left some bags there. It just wasn't called out in the, but yes, they kind of served as somewhat of a retaining wall. Additionally, the stream feature to the south of the pond is something that needs to be will be part of the objective for our design and engineering of a improved space, landscaping plans as well. I provided some pictures for the pond restoration.
On the Jerry Ivy Pond, did we end up using other dirt than the Schwann's dirt that's out there, and has that ever been fully approved to be used?
Yes and no. Yes, we used other dirt, and we're going through a testing plan and working with Schwann's on some of those details. So we need to complete that testing plan before we're able to utilize the dirt that's at Schwann's. So TNR Dirt worked with us to provide
I knew that
alternate
originally that wasn't available. I just
Right.
didn't know since it was kind of delayed getting done if that dirt had been.
It seemed like TNR came back with a better price to use dirt from wherever.
Yeah.
It was a slightly better price. It was soil, to my understanding, was soil that TNR had access to and had control over from a construction project they were working on that they had tested already, had tested for compaction, and was appropriate for the pond, and they provided that soil. Next slide is trash cans. Part of our park amenity proposals, we've done grills, we're doing benches, we've done picnic tables, we replaced grills, we painted shelters,
metal roofs.
and metal roofs in shelters as well. We would like to get away from using a metal painted barrel, which is basically a reused barrel that contains something that we buy. These trash cans that I have pictured on this slide are approximately $550 each. They are a very nice barrel. They're heavy. They're 55 gallon in size. They come with a liner. They come with a lid. The total price with shipping is $146,000 for 250 trash cans. I'm sorry, 260 trash cans. that would be able to deploy a upgraded amenity, upgraded trash can in all of our parks, our trailheads, including our athletic facilities, Bill Burke and Berkley Family Recreational Area, and Magnolia Soccer Complex.
Now, when you say there's a liner in there, do they lift it out?
It's a plastic liner that
Is it like a trash bag that can throw it away?
it's kind of a three-part. Think about a three-part system. There's the enclosure, if you will. Then there's a plastic trash can that fits inside of that enclosure.
How do you empty those things? You get in there with some tongs and pull stuff out one item at a time, or
you He-Man it out. You just like we do now. You collect the trash can, tie it off, and pull it out.
okay, there is a liner.
These will
then.
still use bags.
They would still use bags.
Bags.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So,
And that. Go ahead, Mike.
well, trash cans were an item recommended in the master plan. That's probably a good example of individual recommendations in different parks. And we've said if we're going to do it, what's it take to do it comprehensively? And staff spent a lot of time trying to find options, cost-effective options that were sturdy and aesthetic. And we've spent enough time at this that we've probably gotten past the sticker shock, but wanted to be sure to disclose to you as part of this study session
We're going to
where
have
we're
very
at.
nice trash cans.
We're going to have 255 of them, or 260 of them.
Price is one thing, but I guess I'm kind of surprised the aesthetic isn't more appealing for the price, because it looks like you kind of put a 55-gallon drum and incarcerated it in wire. I mean, it is what it is. I know it serves a purpose, but by my math, they're $561, $562 per unit. I guess I'm a little disappointed with the appearance, but I'll move on. Sorry.
We did consider that premium option or that upgraded option. The prices we looked at were approximately double. For example, the trash cans in the downtown were $1,000 to $1,100 each, for example.
I get it. It's the new paradigm. Everything is just more expensive.
Moving on to fencing.
Not
ahead.
to drag us down, but another thing that came to light as part of this conversation is just how many trash cans we have in a park. I don't remember the number at Bill Burke, but it was startling. And then when you said, well, can we dial that number back? Well, you've got dugouts, and you've got bleachers, and you've got this many fields, and the next thing you know, we're in the 50s and 60s in one park.
There was 52 at Bill Burke Park. Yeah. I think we pared it down to 48. 48 is what we need, and because we added 2 bathrooms, so you need a trash can for each bathroom. So
Does park staff empty all those on a regular route?
it's a team effort. Our park staff does a majority of them. Our field maintenance staff does ones at athletic facilities. Park staff does all the trailhead bathrooms, and then when facilities maintenance with custodians get into certain areas, they do the trash there. So it is quite a team effort. Fencing improvements will be this winter at Bill Burke Park. We're planning on a pre-conference or pre-construction meeting here in the next 2 weeks with the selected vendor for the fencing improvements at Bill Burke and the various field improvements. Met with someone today, and we'll be meeting with someone in the next 2 weeks to identify fencing improvements at the Salina Tennis Complex, to remove the older galvanized fencing on the east end of the site, and to put in to bisect the east and west segments of the tennis complex with that newer black coated vinyl black coated fencing. We're also assembling a inventory of other fencing improvements, whether we need to remove or replace, or simply just remove certain fencing in certain areas. We're working on gathering that inventory now to address that master plan item about fencing improvements within the park system.
I dropped by the tennis center Saturday just to take in the tournament, and noticed that they had closed the street there to the east is that going to be the standard procedure when they have a tournament of some sort?
They pursued that because they were using Tony's Pizza Event Center lobby as their tournament headquarters. So they felt they were going to have a lot of people moving back and forth,
Okay.
and they felt that the safest and best method was to request a special event permit to close off the street.
I thought it was a competitive thing to not have the distraction of traffic going by.
No. It was I wouldn't call it a last minute, but they did make the request earlier last week to make that happen. And I think I found out about it on Friday. But it was very quickly done, and they got a quick approval from the building department.
I guess I overthought that.
But no, I would, to fully answer your question, I would not anticipate that would be a normal request of any tennis tournament. They just happen to be using Tony's Pizza Event Center. Kind of going into the phase of the looking at for what's on our plate now and what's looking forward to doing in 2024. We do have a proposed funding item in the sub-CIP for park improvements, for more concrete improvements. Staff has identified several areas where concrete improvements need to occur or could occur. A lot of trails where we have currently aggregate lime or limestone screenings as trail surfacing. Some of the trails are heavily used, whether it be Bill Burke or Jerry Ivy, and we would like to consider possibly creating a concrete trail. Additional parking at Bondi Fields at Sunset. There's some of the trails at Indian Rock Park as well. Some additional spots at Oakdale Park where it's currently a gravel parking lot closer to Eric Stein Stage, and converting that to a concrete parking. Additionally, there is a lack of connecting sidewalks at Kenwood Park. We have a playground at Kenwood Park, we have 2 shelters, and we have a bathroom at Kenwood Park near the train, and there are not sidewalks there currently. So we would like to look at more concrete improvements. Indian Rock Lodge and Overlook is what I talked about earlier a little bit. Seeking improvements for a community space that incorporates an overlook across the city. And we'd like to provide bathrooms and a kitchen for that space. We will have some sidewalk and parking improvements that will occur. What I didn't mention earlier, what I should have mentioned earlier, was that Phase 3 concrete plan does open bids in November. The intended timeline is for them to start as soon as possible in 2024, and then have that done before April for those concrete improvements at Indian Rock Lodge and the tennis center. Obviously, weather pending, of course, but staff has on their plate the stage at the stage at Oakdale Park. It is a master plan item to address the stage. The acoustical ceiling of that has shown some failure. Getting that addressed this winter and spring before the Riverfest occurs next year.
Mr. Hammond,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you have about 5 minutes. I didn't know if you had a good stopping point.
Well, I think if I do have a good stopping point, I think I can stop anywhere.
No,
but I didn't want
Good.
to prevent you from asking any questions.
Well,
if you had
and
any.
I don't know if we have, it looks like there's still quite a bit here, if we need to, add this on to another study session or something, because this is good information.
We can do that.
Okay, continue.
I can continue on for 5 minutes, and then you can
Yep,
cut
that'd
me
be
off.
fine. Just, I knew you were talking and not watching the clock, so I didn't want to.
Actually, if I can offer a little bit of a recap before we completely wrap it up. I hope what you're seeing is kind of systematically working our way through the master plan. The other thing that we've talked about quite a bit is carving out categories of work and coming up with a long-term plan. And you've heard me use the phrase whack-a-mole quite a bit, and this is a good example of prior practice of whack-a-mole. The playground schedule, we've looked at all of them. We've looked at their life cycle. We've looked at a funding source, dedicated that funding source. Same approach for bathrooms, the playground mulch. All these things, instead of being issues that crop up and we address catch as catch can, we're trying to plan ahead, budget for it, make it something that's not a recurring challenge. It's something that we just do in our routine maintenance. And Jeff and his staff have done a great job of gathering the data on the front end to inventory all that and put a life cycle to it, and then also implementing a lot of these plans. So didn't want to let that go unmentioned.
And to kind of follow up on that, if you could just let everyone know the dollar amount that we're setting aside on an annual basis, and if you happen to off the top of your head, or if someone here from finance knows what that balance we have currently in that account is, that would maybe be helpful for us and the public.
$500,000 a year from the sales tax goes to the park master plan. As we see sales tax growth, there's an opportunity for that to grow incrementally. We fell a little bit behind in terms of spending that and getting this plan implemented, so that created a reserve balance that we're spending down. And I've seen that number in this presentation somewhere, but I don't remember it off the top of my head.
The number that was contributed from sales tax this year was $860,000.
Okay, and I think we have like about $1 million balance left to spend down.
1.2 million, I believe.
Okay, and then as we mentioned, the alcohol sales tax is dedicated for playgrounds, and I don't remember that number off the top of my head either, but we've budgeted in a little over $200,000 a year, I think.
So we have like a 1.2 balance. When does the 2024 balance get placed into that account? Does that happen?
Just looking at my tabulation on the last sheet, it's just over $1 million of fund balance remaining. January 1st would be the date in which whatever you authorize for park improvement funding for next year would be placed into that account.
So when you say whack-a-mole, the original Parks Master Plan attempted to prioritize everything, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But you're saying now we've created some synergy around topical projects, and
Right.
the staff is inventoried, and we're attacking things in a little more holistic way.
That is definitely the case. And then additionally, the way some of these things ended up on the park master plan is we didn't have an ongoing plan. They just aged over time, and they became a catch-up, a deferred maintenance item. As much as we can, we're trying to fix this once and then plan, budget and plan for the long-term fix as well.
And that was the question I was going to ask. When you mentioned the certain playgrounds that have been completed, are they now going on the tail end of?
Correct.
So this is a self-perpetuating
Yes, sir.
plan?
Yes, sir.
Playground mulch, concrete, trails, playground equipment, bathrooms. Some of this has been segmented off as river renewal project items. Anything that we can find. In fact, we're having conversations about, we don't have to paint every year, so let's figure out what complements the paint schedule. And so we're doing mulch one year, we're doing paint the next year, but we have a consistent budget allocation so that we're not fighting for that funding in future years.
Well, I do think we need to come back to this, because I see in the additional slides here, the Jerry Ivy Memorial feature
Yes.
that I've gotten questions about whether, that's just going to be, we're going to come back to that, or if that's just going to be let go. So I think we need to find time to
I think we do have a dedicated topic next week, and I'm working from memory, but I think the week after that's open, so we could
Yes, sir.
pick this up pretty quickly.
That's my understanding as well, that we do have an available spot.
Good. Okay, we do have about 5 minutes for our meeting, so thank you for all the information, and looks like we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you. Okay, it is 4 o'clock. I will call the October 16th Salina City Commission meeting to order. I will first look at staff for confirmation of the Kansas Open Meeting Act required notice has been properly provided.
Yes.
Thank you. May we have a roll call?
Mayor Hoppick,
Here.
Commissioner Davis,
Here.
Commissioner Lankowitz,
Here.
Commissioner Longbine,
Here.
Commissioner Ryan.
Here?
Thank you. Will those who are able please stand for a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we have no awards or proclamations or public hearings, so that will bring us to item 5, the consent agenda.
Item 5.1, approve the minutes of the meeting of October 9th, 2023. Item 5.2, approve resolution number 23-8151, reaffirming the Saline County Solid Waste Management Plan with no changes. And item 5.3, authorize adding scope in the amount of $115,000 to project number 23016, 2023 Mill and Inlay.
Okay, thank you. Is there an item a commissioner would like to have removed from the consent agenda? Okay, if not, I will.
Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That item passes 5-0. That will lead us to administration.
Item 6.1, consider awarding the bid for the demolition of the former Oakdale Ice Skating Rink to Deal Enterprises, Inc. in the amount of $77,750 with a $3,887.50 or 5% construction contingency for a total project authorization not to exceed $81,637.50 and authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Deal Enterprises, Inc. upon fulfillment of all prerequisites under the purchasing policy.
Mr. Hammond.
Thank you, Mayor Hoppick and Commissioners. Jeff Hammond, Director of Parks and Recreation. In 1925, the city allocated $15,000 for the construction of a municipal pool in Oakdale Park, which was completed in 1926. It's worth noting Oakdale Pool in those days did not have a chlorination system, and the water had to be emptied and refilled weekly. Fast forward to 1956. The Salina Municipal Pool at Kenwood Park was built, and the Oakdale Pool was partially filled in, eventually being used as an ice skating rink into the 21st century. From staff reports, it was used as a skating pond sporadically in the 2000 years over the winter seasons, depending on the temperatures. In 2012, an art project was undertaken with painting for the River Festival, which was done by the Salina Arts Center. Per conversations with city staff and our arts and humanities staff, the artwork was never meant to be preserved, and its decommissioning is not necessary. The proposed demolition project involves the removal of approximately 35,000 square feet of concrete slabs and sidewalks. We intend on going 3 feet below ground level to for the demo or the excavation of the current pond or ice skating rink. This will require about 5,000 tons of backfill soil, which will be compacted and graded to match the park's surroundings. The Parks and Recreation Master Plan identifies this project as a step towards allowing future improvements to occur. Park staff will be seeding the area for site restoration and erosion control. Moreover, additional demolition projects are on the horizon, including the demolition of tennis courts, horseshoe pits at Sunset Park, and related fencing around those areas. We've received 3 quotes for the Oakdale Ice Skating Rink demolition. with Deal Enterprises having the low bid of $77,750, including a 5%, not including the 5% contingency. Deal Construction is a reputable contractor with a track record in Salina. They've recently helped us with the tennis court demolitions at Oakdale Park. Funding this project will be financed from the Park Improvement Fund, which is generated from sales tax. For your consideration, we've laid out options. Approving the bid for the demolition of the Oakdale Ice Skating Rink to Deal Enterprises at a cost of $77,750 with a 5% contingency of $3,887.50 for a total project authorization not to exceed $81,637.50, and authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Deal Enterprises. Option 2, approve the bid as in similar to option 1, but with amendments as the city commission deems appropriate. Option 3, postpone consideration of the bid award, and then option 4, decide not to award the bid and provide staff with any further direction. Staff recommends option number 1, and I'll stand for any questions that you may have.
Okay, I will look to my right to see if we have any questions from commissioners.
No questions.
I know we've talked about this before, but it's just going to be, right now, green space.
Correct. Park staff will finish off after they compact it and do kind of a rough work. Park staff will do the fine grading to prepare for seeding of the area and convert it to grass.
So as open space alone, I think it is an opportunity for the River Festival and arts and humanities to, use that space differently. And then long-term, we can have some master planning conversations about Oakdale Park in general, and or if there's improvements that support the River Festival. But none of that's definitive. That's all something to be addressed in the future. But
I guess I thought it'd be more space for cars at the car show.
well, that too, yeah.
Possibility.
And has anyone tested to see how deep thick that concrete is?
We have not. Anecdotally, there was a deep end and a shallow end. Once we had your authorization to move forward, we were going to, staff-wise, we were going to do some, just to make sure we can get down 3 feet in some areas. We'll see. But that's why the contingency was included, just in case we needed to address some of those
I was
shallow
going to
areas.
ask questions along that same lines, because the pictures that I recall seeing, the diving boards were stationed in the middle of that pool, so the deep part of it was in the center. And you say they partially filled it and then poured what's there for the skating rink. That all doesn't have to be removed, does it? Just down a certain depth,
We're going down 3 feet.
3 feet?
Yes.
And it's not just around the exterior and the center of it.
Yeah. We're going down 3 feet of the identified square footage, 35,000 square feet, and including the sidewalks that surround the perimeter is our intention to demolish.
That was filled in with concrete when the pool was filled in, or do we know?
Well, the way it read, it says partially filled in. I hope it's not all concrete.
Yeah, I can't imagine
That would have been
that.
expensive.
Right.
Even in 1956.
Well, I'm just even though we don't have a designated future use, just wondering if we then have to come drill down another 8 feet. I mean, depending on what it's, we may find that there's the equivalent of a landfill in there.
Well, I think the first thing we'll do is destructive testing.
Testing,
And then if we get thrown a curve, we'll have to address that. But we didn't want to tear into it before we at least had consensus that's where we're headed.
If that was filled in much like a landfill would have been filled in, do we then have to follow any EPA or other guidelines as far as how we recover it?
Yeah, I don't know that we have any reason to believe that there's anything in there other than sand, dirt, and concrete. But if we should find something else, we'll have to deal with that accordingly.
Okay.
For the record, I never swam in that pool, but I did ice skate on there.
I think we have some in the room that did swim in the pool, but I won't call them out.
Any other questions for Mr. Hammond? Okay, any comments or questions from the public?
Norman Mantle, Salina. What are you doing with that old concrete? Because you've got a environmental issue. Denver is having the same problems when they tore up the old Stapleton International Airport. Wherever they reused it, now they're having groundwater contamination. It's got calcium chloride in it. It'll burn you. Number two, you start digging up that old swimming pool. What's underneath it? That used to be a Native American area. You might run into some artifacts. So you ought to look into that. They're having a big problem with that out in Denver.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay, with that, I will bring it back to the commission for action.
Mr. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I move that this commission award the bid for demolition of the former Oakdale Ice Skating Rink to Deal Enterprises Incorporated in the amount of $77,750 with a $3,887.50 5% contingency for a total project authorization not to exceed $81,637.50 and authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Deal Enterprises Incorporated upon fulfillment of all prerequisites upon the purchasing policy.
Second.
We have a motion and a second awarding the bid for the demolition of the former Oakdale Ice Skating Rink to Deal Enterprises, Inc. in the amount of $77,750 with a $3,887.50 contingency for a total project authorization not to exceed $81,637.50 and authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Deal Enterprises, Inc. upon fulfillment of all prerequisites under the purchasing policy.
One question. Just reading the bid or contract on the back here, just so I'm clear, what's being excavated is, well, this is 6-inch removal of material from the project. The 3 feet is the entire area or just the ring and the sidewalk? It says dispose ice skating. Now, should that ring, should that have been rink on the back page? I didn't catch it.
Yeah, I think, well, I assume that's a typo and should be rink, but I'll have to defer to staff.
I was assuming it's the whole thing, but I saw that it finally caught me. It's not just the edge that's going down 3 feet.
So your question is, are they taking out the floor of that, or is
Well,
it just
on the
what's
very
around?
back page, it says ice skating ring. I didn't know whether that was just the edge is going down 3 feet. I assumed it was the whole
I
thing.
think
That
that's
just
the whole
It is the
area.
whole, it is the whole,
So that should be RINK?
correct.
Okay, that's all. Just wanted to make sure.
We'll
Okay.
verify before I sign it. but
Okay.
That is our understanding, yes.
All right. I'm good.
And it,
Okay.
okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That item passes 5-0. That will bring us to development business.
Item 7.1, approve ordinance number 23-11178 on first reading relating to application number Z23-7 filed by Chief Tony Snyder Jr. on behalf of the Salina Fire Department, requesting a change in zoning district classification from A1 to PPF to allow the construction of a new fire station facility. The subject property is a 4.57 acre tract of land at the north end of the Berkley Family Recreation Area.
Mr. Andrew.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. The Berkley Family Recreation Area is currently zoned A1 agricultural and has been since coming into the city. Part of that is a function of its former use as a municipal airport site, and part of that is the fact that the Berkley Family Recreation Area has never been platted. And so the request before you deals with the proposal to relocate the current Fire Station number 4 at the corner of Marymount and Crawford to a new location at the north end of the Berkley Family Recreation Area. The Fire Station number 4 was built in that location in 1969 and opened in January of 1970. And so the request here is to have appropriate zoning and to create a separate zoning and building lot for the proposed fire station. Plans are still conceptual at this stage, so no one's been involved in doing a formal site plan or zoning review. It is just to get the appropriate zoning on the property for planning purposes. So by way of comparison, the proposed new station would contain a little over 20,000 square feet and have 5 truck bays. The existing fire station contains 3,900 square feet and has 3 fire truck bays. The site we're discussing would have 664 feet of frontage on Crawford and would be 350 feet deep along Markley Road. And the plan is to have access into the station from both Markley Road and a wide access opening for vehicles to exit onto Crawford Street. So the public facilities district was created to accommodate facilities like this. Many of the city's current facilities are on property that's zoned residential, and we sometimes run into conflicts having city facilities in residential zone properties where the district regulations aren't really conducive to this type of public use. So this is a district that was designed specifically for these types of uses. The property is well served with utilities and with street access. We are currently working with, or the engineering department is working with the fire station design engineers and the engineering firm working with Parks and Recreation on drainage issues to coordinate those things. One thing that's notable is though Crawford Street is an arterial street, the traffic counts east of Markley Road are only 1,500 cars a day. So the need for some form of traffic signal or to get vehicles out of the station is not a identified need at this time, just because those are pretty low traffic volumes for a major arterial street. Comprehensive plan supports this as a location for a public facility such as this fire station. And so the Planning Commission held a public hearing on this request on September 19th. They voted 7-0 to recommend that the zoning map for the city be amended to change the zoning of this site to public use, public facilities as requested, subject to satisfactory platting of the property. So your options this afternoon would be to confer with the findings and recommendations of the Planning Commission and approve the attached ordinance rezoning the north end of the Berkley Family Recreation Area from agricultural to public use, public facilities on first reading. If you disagree with that recommendation, you could return this item to the Planning Commission with 3 affirmative votes. You could postpone consideration this afternoon if you think you need additional information to reach a decision, or you could overturn the recommendation of the Planning Commission and deny the rezoning application. There would need to be 4 votes in support of such a denial. If you were to approve this request on first reading, then second reading would be held until the property is final platted, and we would work with the fire department and their consultants to get this final platted. But we're not voting. We have a conceptual site plan, but there's a lot of work to be done to get a more refined site plan. So that's more there just for illustrative purposes and to try to get appropriately sized and zoned site for the new fire station. So with that, I'd be open to any questions you have.
Okay, we'll look to my left. Any
No
questions?
questions.
All right.
I see fire staff is here. Is there any Can we get an update on where we're at on this? I know we're in the design phase.
Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners, Tony Snyder, Fire Chief. Right now, we have had, since we began the process, we had our 4th meeting with concept and design. And we have a team comprised of not only members of the fire department staff, but field staff as well, and other city agencies are participating. The Arts Commission folks have been involved. So we're still kind of working through that. The size is approximate what it's going to be for the overall square footage is what we're planning. So as we go further and further, that will give us our better idea of specifically what we're looking at. But total number of bays, and this is less than what I initially came to city manager's office with, but understanding, trying to be a good steward of financial responsibility. So we're working through those kind of things. And I think we're on a good path, but we're still looking at probably another year of meetings and this and that before we really hit the ground running. Any other questions?
I just wondered, because I've seen other cities have opened brand-new stations, and some are near completion. And
I've visited some places that have just been done. Usually, once everything's done and we get all the planning out of the way, then it actually becomes real. And then it seems to move a lot faster.
I guess last update we had, the price had went from skyrocketed.
From years ago, yes.
Yes.
That's correct.
If you don't mind, I'll jump in here just a second. Jacob Wood, Deputy City Manager. So our design contract, really it's a 2-phase contract. The first phase is preliminary design, and then they'll provide a cost estimate. So we're kind of working through what we think this station will look like. Then they're going to provide a cost estimate. Then we'll come back to the City Commission and do another agreement with the consultant to do final design, and then actually bid the project and go forward with that. I think we are probably looking at maybe 90 days before we'll have a cost estimate and preliminary design completed, and then we'll be back to the City Commission. So I think before the end of the year, we'll have something back to you to approve the next phase, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No questions.
Okay, any questions or comments from the public? On this? Okay. Okay, with that, I will bring it back to the commission for action.
Mayor, I move we concur with the findings and recommendations of the Planning Commission, Ordinance Number 23-11178, rezoning the north end of the Berkley Family Recreation Area from A1 Ag to PF Public Use Facilities, should be approved on first reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the, with the Salina City Commission concurring with the findings and recommendations of the Planning Commission, Ordinance Number 23-11178, rezoning the north end of the Berkley Family Recreation Area from A1 Agricultural to PF Public Use Public Facilities, approving on first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That item passes 5-0. That will lead us to item 7.2.
Item 7.2, approve ordinance number 23-11179 on first reading relating to application number 06-08A filed by the Salina City Commission, requesting approval of an amendment to the boundary and effective area of the North Ohio Street Gateway Overlay District to add a 19.80 acre tract of land on the west side of North Ohio Street that was recently annexed into the city to the Overlay District area.
Okay, even though this does deal with Beck Seed, and even though I have closed the transaction on my end as the business, and we even did a groundbreaking I see last week when I was out of town, to remain consistent, I'm just going to go ahead and recuse myself from this action since I've recused myself on all other actions dealing with Beck Seed. So with that, I will turn it over to Vice Mayor Longbody again.
Thank you. Mr. Andrew.
So the short summary of this is when Beck Seeds decided to relocate the location of their facility from a 15-acre tract of land that was inside the city limits along Ohio to a 19.8-acre tract of land that was not inside the city limits. There were a whole bunch of boundaries that were moved. We moved the city limit boundary through annexation. We moved the zoning boundary through expanding the I-2 light industrial area. We moved the comprehensive plan future land use map boundary to incorporate that site. The one boundary that didn't move as a result of all that was the boundary of the North Ohio Overlay District. And so on August 21st, 2023, the City Commission directed staff to initiate an expansion of the North Ohio Gateway Overlay District boundaries to include the new site so that it's subject to the same set of standards as the remainder of the site to the east. So the back site itself is 23.92 acres, and it has a peninsula that comes out to North Ohio Street for access. So we have a situation where part of their site is in the overlay district and part of it is not within the overlay district. So if you were to approve this request on first reading, it would be moving the boundary to correspond with the city limit boundary, the zoning boundary, and the future land use map boundary, and would have the effect of having the entire Beck's campus subject to a single set of development regulations. So with that, I'd be open to any questions you have. We've got maps in your packet that show what that change is, but this is essentially, we have a portion of their campus that's in the overlay and a portion that's not, and this would put the whole campus under a single set of development standards.
Questions or comments?
No questions.
No questions.
I have a comment. I attended the groundbreaking of Beck Seeds last week, and that's going to be a great addition to the community. Something new that we've never had anything like this before, and they're really excited to be here and get started. So
They do have a building permit and plans that have been submitted for our review.
any questions or comments from the public? See none, I'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Mr. Vice Mayor, move that approving ordinance number 23-11179, amending the North Ohio Gateway Overlay District boundary to add a 19.8 acre site on the west side of North Ohio Street that was recently annexed into the city.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 23-11179 on first reading, requesting approval of an amendment to the boundary and effective area of the North Ohio Street Overlay District to add a 19.8 acre tract of land on the west side of North Ohio. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. We'll welcome back Mayor Hoppick.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, that will lead us to other business. Is there an item a commissioner would like to bring before the commission at this time?
It's not anything I wanted action on today. There was a candidate forum yesterday and just issues that were brought up that we've been considering. Just wanted to just see if they're somewhere on the future radar. One was concern about what our eventual plans are for the space that the tennis courts and horseshoe pits currently occupy at Sunset Park. And I recommended that the neighbors in that group get together and certainly bring their opinions to the city manager or to us. And the other was if there was any follow-up on extension of the bus or other OCCK transportation services for night workers. It was an idea that had been brought up, I think, during the budget hearings, and we hadn't done anything else with it that I knew of. But,
Yeah, with respect to that, I know that was a topic of conversation. It was not characterized as a formal request on the part of the city, and you're correct. That request is going to bounce back to us with a budget funding request of us. But I know there's been some general conversation about that could be beneficial, but I'm not aware of OCCK really pursuing that, nor have I seen a cost attached with it.
oh, thank you.
I was just going to comment that, well, I had a surgery that's limited my mobility lately, so I haven't been around, but I had the opportunity to go down Markley and Magnolia Road, and I realized that Magnolia has been recently covered, and I was surprised very pleasantly, and that's something that was needed for a long time, so I don't know how staff pulled that together and got it done, but it's much appreciated for anybody that rides a motorcycle, a bike, or walks any of that portion of the road.
So the improvement that you saw, it was part of our street maintenance program. As part of your strategic planning, you also identified both East and West Magnolia being priorities. And so we've budgeted for design and construction of those to a heightened standard in the future. And then while I have the floor, would add that the different organizations in the community that they get together and have shared a lobbyist, attended KDOT listening tour, I guess you could call it, that was held at Hilton Garden Inn. Vice Mayor Longbine attended as well, and we took the opportunity to stress the need for assistance with the Magnolia Road improvements from I-135 to Centennial. So took a lobbying approach there. We've applied for a grant through the KDOT Cost Share program. This will be the third time we've applied. Also had the opportunity to have a one-on-one meeting with the Secretary of Transportation with myself and Phil Smith Haynes from the county to kind of demonstrate how much activity is going on in the Magnolia Centennial corridor and plead our case for state assistance as well. So what you see now is kind of the immediate mill and overlay, and then per your direction in strategic planning, we're working on the broader improvements as well.
Well, thanks to the Vice Mayor, and certainly we don't want to give up on a 4-lane for all of that stretch of road, but what we've gotten done is a big improvement to what was a dangerous piece of road.
And the press release came out this morning that they're starting on West Magnolia today. So both stretches really need improvement.
Yeah, everything in between's not bad, but too into that. A question was asked of me the other day is for an update on the shilling cleanup. I know it's kind of out of our hands, but have you had any contact and any conversations with where that is?
Yeah, well, you may recall you authorized a contract recently that is kind of the starting point of excavation of some of that dirt, and then design works nearing completion to come back to you for a treatment facility. So we continue to, the SBEs, which is the city, the school district, the Kent State, Salina, and the Airport Authority, continue to meet. We continue to work with our consultants. They're doing the design work behind the scenes, and we've got that timeline that I think Martha shared maybe a month ago now, that kind of breaks apart all those different plumes and all those different stages of progress. But you should see some dirt flying and something out in the field that's more noticeable.
I remember and again, I couldn't remember the timeline, but I know there's people that are curious about that because, we were awarded the money, quite a few months ago, and it's been.
We've actually taken receipt of the money. It's on hand. We're spending some of that down for design fees, and then the contract that you recently awarded.
I reassured everybody that was in a separate, as I call it, bucket, and was not being touched for anything else. So
correct. We're working it through, and once we get that treatment in place, then you'll see a building structure come out of the ground, and there'll be treatment technology inside that to pump and treat groundwater. And then there's a number of other treatments that'll have to be employed on different plumes in different areas. So it's all forthcoming.
I may, if this individual wants any more information, I may get that date that was on, that we had that, so I
Yeah,
can
we can-
forward
we-
that on to him.
I think that, and then that Gantt chart of different
That's-
components of the project broken
Yeah.
out by quarters of the year would probably be the best
That would be helpful. So,
information.
okay, thank you very much. Okay. Okay, with that, that leads us to citizens forum. This is an opportunity for the public to come forward and share with us. We do ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. And with that, the floor is open.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Danette Toon. I don't actually live in the city of Salina, but I was given your YouTube video from your last commission meeting, last Monday, the 9th. And specifically, I was most interested in that part from minutes 37, 48 through 39. And I transcribed it. I'm not a great transcriber, I will tell you that right now, but I didn't mean to leave out any words, so I'm just going to read this. And it was City Commissioner Mr. Ryan who made the comment under other business, and it had to do with the BESS project. And so I just wanted to come and clarify some of the comments that were made during that time. Here is the transcription. Well, it seems to me it was a sizable tax revenue in the decision, not only for us, but for the school systems in the area and also the county. I think there are 9 members on that board. Are there? Is it completely filled out? It seems a shame that 6 made that decision and got deadlocked when maybe there are 3 more people to weigh in on that. So I just was hoping there are conversations going on where that might get considered by the full board and fleshed out completely. So my first question has to do with the part that says sizable tax revenue in the decision, not only for us. My understanding is that the BESS proposed site is at McReynolds and Simpson. I don't believe that's in the city of Salina, so I'm not sure how tax revenues would be coming to the city. So I would ask, are there city revenues coming from that project?
Not directly. If we do, when we have projects, sometimes we'll look at a cost-benefit analysis of sales tax spinoff and spending related to construction, but not a direct property tax.
So a multiplier effect, so to speak, or a turnover effect.
Correct.
I was an executive director of economic development at one point in time, so I understand turnover and multiplier. But no direct taxes as a property tax, which is what I would assume as the property tax. There are no property taxes associated.
And not as I'm not all that aware of the project. I am roughly
Sure.
aware of the location.
Yep.
So yeah, I think they're out of our boundaries.
Or out of your
and would be
boundaries,
subject to our
correct.
property tax.
That would have been my, so I would just ask that for the citizens of Salina, if they think that this project somehow needs to get their efforts behind them, they're not going to get tax revenues from it, other than if the construction workers come in town and spend money, stay in a hotel. So you've got heads in beds, those sorts of things. So understand. Thank you. Second, there were 3 members who took votes last week at your city commission meeting, and that is as it should be. As you have rules and regulations associated with what a quorum makes and how many people can attend a meeting, so is true with the Planning and Zoning Board. And unfortunately, the outside attorney who looked at that didn't look at the bylaws of the Planning and Zoning Commission. As you talked about, and I think you did a very eloquent job of explaining that, it was a very complicated, it didn't, it did, it didn't, it did, it didn't, it did, it didn't. But
About another minute, if we could.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you.
My last is that this last weekend I was with my grandsons, and as they like to do, we played a game, and that game was, what would you do for $1 million? Would you jump in an alligator pit? Would you lick the Utah salt flats for a mile? And of course, I wouldn't do that for $1 million, but some people might. And so as this project isn't just about money, and I wanted to make sure that that was clear. There is a National Fire Protection Association paper called Is Your Community Ready for a BESS project? And I won't put the fire chief on alert. He's gone, I think. But there are a lot of other factors associated with BESS. There were 4 fires in New York in the last 4 months associated with those projects. They can be very potentially dangerous to the community. And so I have a copy of that National Fire Protection Association, Is Your Community Ready? If you would like a copy of that, I'd be happy to get that to your city manager.
Yeah, if you could leave that with the city clerk and she can
With the city
disseminate
clerk,
to us.
that would be you. I'm happy to
Okay.
get that to you. And
Thank you very
for your
much.
time.
Mhm.
Debbie Corrales. I have 3 questions. Why aren't we sent notification when we're on an advisory board that our terms have ended? Why aren't we sent a letter thanking us for our service? And why do we have term limits but the commissioners don't?
Don't know that I have direct answers for any of those. We have a process that by resolution that establishes how people are appointed and imposes the term limit. That's a policy decision that the governing body can make, has been in place for quite some time. As far as the mailed notice, that seems appropriate. I'll see what we've done in the past and what we can do going forward.
Yeah, because I got a hold of one of my advisory board people, and they didn't know that they were no longer on there.
Okay.
And so some kind of notification should be sent to somebody. I would think in my case, the Animal Advisory Board, that would be Monique's responsibility to let us know our terms have ended.
Actually, we do that through the city clerk's office, but I'll take a look at it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners, and Mike. First of all, I wanted to thank you for the open hours at the animal shelter. I think we've heard a lot of positive comments about that, and people are glad that they can go in now without ringing the doorbell and so on and so forth. So I'm really thankful for that. And allowing the public into the kennel area. That was a biggie for me. I just think those animals really need to see people. And I've got to tell you, I've heard wonderful things about Andy that the Parks and Rec brought over from Kenwood Cove. I've heard that she's doing an amazing job over there. She's cleaned things up. She's got the computer up to speed and the fostering program in order. And I just wanted to let you know that we're watching, we're keeping an eye on it, and we're going to watch for continued improvements. And just wanted to thank you. The only other thing that I can bring up right now, and we need to really look at this because this seems to be a severe problem at the animal shelter, is the number of pit bulls that are taking up space over there in the court holds. And that just seems like we hear that it's a repetitive thing, and I don't know. I just think that we need to do maybe a little bit more research in what we can do about them, what we can do to expedite the process getting them out. So we'll be looking at that too. But again, thanks you for opening up the animal shelter and opening up the kennels.
Okay, thank you.
Norman Mantle again. Need to keep this surveillance, radar invasion, drones. They're already targeting these cities. They found plans in Florida where they're designing plans where we can make an aerial assault with these drones. We can load them up with weapons. We can weaponize them. I talked to a guy that sells these. He says, yeah, we can put machine guns on them. We can put bombs on them. We can put spray apparatus on them. You discussed this here some time ago in that room over there, and you just kind of went away when it was being brought out here, this drone program out here to the KTI. So these drones can come in under 300 feet. So maybe you keep that in mind about these drones. We can use them.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and Mayor. Ricky from Salina. I'm here to follow up on the things we talked about concerning the chicken ordinance. We would like some answers on the things we talked about. The neighbors' chickens need to be moved to the chicken coop area. We have been working on this for about a year now and would like this problem to be solved, the sooner the better. We are tired of the ammonia smell, which is really bad on windy days and rainy days. The neighbor has been told often to clean. However, he hasn't cleaned very good because it smells strong off and on. Whoever the city sends out, how do they know if he's been cleaning or not? He does not keep the chickens in the chicken coop area. He has some inside the shed, which is back of our fence, and at night the chickens go into the shed or the dog kennel. I'm reaching out to the commissioners and mayor to please help on this issue. How can our neighbor get away with this and not follow the ordinance concerning in this town? Some people some people I've talked to that have chickens are responsible and keep their chickens in the chicken coop area. They also clean every other day. Almost every day when we open our back door, it smells like a chicken farm. The ordinance concerning the chickens in the city clear and meant to be followed, and seems like a simple solution to enforce these laws. Thank you.
So I'll do my best to cover a couple things. And staff's tried to be in contact with the millers and go out to the site when we expect that there's potentially a smell issue. And I think, as we've discussed previously, the code as it's written only regulates the location of the coop. And so, and now whether they're using other structures as coops is a little bit more difficult, but the coop itself has a physical separation requirement. Where the chickens are actually able to go is not limited, so they can go right up to the property line, which is a challenge. And it's, understandably it's a concern, but it's an enforcement challenge for us given the way that it's written. And so what we've talked about is bringing before you a study session to walk you through what the ordinance actually says relative to what expectations may be. And we're working through the legal questions of what your options may be given kind of the grandfathering aspect of it, what has already been adopted, and what the concerns might be. So we continue to be in contact with the neighboring property owner, with the millers. The code as it's written does not give us a real clear, concise solution to this particular instance.
Yeah, whether we do a study session or if there's an opportunity to send us that ordinance and code to review,
Sure.
just so I have no idea. I don't even know what that falls under. But I would like to look at that, and obviously I think we need to be given legal guidance as to whether they fall under the grandfathering, and if we need to amend that code, I mean, whether it's the number of chickens, the coop requirements and that type of stuff, it does sound like something to.
One of the things that we've looked at along those lines is we don't have any registration for keeping chickens. We have a numeric limit. So as we bring forward possible changes, I would like to be able to tell you we have this many instances in the community, but we just don't have that data. We know that we have multiple instances of people keeping chickens and being pretty attached to that, but that's background information that I think would be helpful for you as you make that decision, but I don't know that we're going to be able to pull that data together for you.
And I know we stated we had some open time in 2 weeks. I don't know if that's too quickly to put together a study session on this, or.
Yeah, I think we probably could. The conversations we've been having, we're starting to gather that information. There's a couple of legal questions. You would think this wouldn't be that hard, but there's a couple of
Nothing's
legal
easy.
questions related to the issue.
Are there any
that
health
remain.
or environmental regulations that are being violated?
There's a requirement to lime the chicken yard once every 3 months, and staff has been out and met with the property owners, and indications are they're doing that. There is language about odor that's offensive to the neighbors, not specific to chickens, just keeping of animals in general. So that could be your dogs in your backyard or chickens, but that's it's a very subjective assessment of what is there a smell and does it rise to the level of annoying. We've been out, sent staff out multiple times trying to coordinate with Mr. Miller in terms of when is it most likely that the smell would be noticeable, and we've not synced up on a time frame where we've sent our staff out and they've confirmed that they smell.
So is that something that's adjudicated at the local administrative level? Does that require going to court,
Well,
filing a complaint?
That's one of the remaining legal questions. If I had it to do over again, I certainly wouldn't write the code line. Well, I say do it over again. I didn't write the first round, but that language is not nearly as precise as it probably could or should be to be able to be administered and enforced. It's this open-ended, subjective odors that annoy the neighbors is how it's referenced. And it leaves us in a precarious position of trying to interpret that.
I'd like to follow up on that. I have read the code, and it appears to me like the chickens are just free range. They could roam the neighborhood. And I think that we do need to revisit that and define a little more of where the chickens live. You know, and my thinking is the chicken coop is where the chickens live, and in this case, they do not. And back to Ms. Bass' comment, with the shelter operations, yeah, things are improving. And the pit bull issue is something that the information Mr. Corrales gave us last week, I read through, and I think as a community, we need to revisit the pit bull ordinance, because it's just not working. We're just housing these dogs forever. And to me, that is a inhumane practice in itself, to essentially imprison dogs. So I think it's something that we need to just discuss and open up to. Many communities have revised their ban ordinance and modified them to basically consider it dangerous dogs, not breed specific. So maybe we could put that in with the study session with the chickens.
Yeah,
I think that's going to be a separate study session.
As a commissioner, I never imagined I'd spend this much time with the animal shelter and chickens. But
we generally try to size up whether there's a consensus from the governing body. So if there is, and that's something you want us to put on a calendar, we'll do that.
I would definitely be open to that.
Everybody looking at me, I must have the floor. Ben Winholz, Salina. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm going to go back to the study session that was earlier today and a comment that was made by Commissioner Longbine. I didn't realize this because I didn't go by that the Midway Street was actually blocked off. And according to Mr. Hammond, it was blocked off because they were using Tony's Event Center as their headquarters, so the safety, and I understand that. And he said that they had to get a event permit to do this. Now, you guys just went through the event permits and all the charges and stuff just a couple of weeks ago. So my question is, and there's nobody from staff here from the building service can answer, so maybe the city manager can. Mr. Hammond said that they got the permit last week and the tournament was Saturday and Sunday. According to the rules of getting these permits, you have to give them, I think it's at least 2 weeks to a month's notice to be able to do this. And if you don't, then you have a penalty of 3 times the permit fee, basically added to the cost. Now, I take it that USD 305 was probably the one that had to get this permit. So were they charged 3 times the permit fee because they did not get the application in time?
Yeah, I was involved with conversations about TPEC. I know they paid the TPEC rental fees, but I don't know. I see Ms. Driscoll's on the line. Do you happen to know? Oop, we can see you, but we can't hear you. Nope.
She's 2 doors down. She could come down here. And evidently she is.
Are we going to stop the clock for you?
Well, I'm going to say, yeah, you're using up all my time. Just and if that is the case that they did and had to pay a penalty, that's fine, because if you're going to make these rules for the general public and every citizen of Salina to have to pay this 3 times fee for not getting it in time, it should apply to everybody. USD 305 and everyone else should have to play by the same rules. That's what I want to make sure, is that everybody is playing by the same rules. And the thing said, when you guys set this up in place, if you didn't get that application in time, it was a 3 times penalty added to the permit. So hopefully they got it. And hopefully Ms. Driscoll can come down and say.
While we're waiting, is there anybody else? Okay, I guess she was in the building, so I think she's
Yeah,
in this one.
started to call her, but I think she's on the way.
While we're waiting, there's going to be an executive session. Could we put a 3-minute break in between?
We get
Thank
to
you.
Oh, there she is. I was writing something.
Sorry, I hit unmute and for some reason it wouldn't work. The tennis tournament that was this weekend, as I understand it currently, was a basic permit, so that's our most minimal qualification. There was no full road closure, which would typically push something higher up in our permitting system. So because it was basic, primarily at the facility, which is designed to do that, we were able to permit it kind of on a last-minute basis. Because if you remember, our permitting system works on the amount of resources that you need, so very minimal resources on that. Sorry.
Yeah, so I guess what you're saying is it follows our chart that we had as far as the, okay.
So they were charged for being late basic, as I understand it right now.
Okay.
Staff who primarily handle that is not here at the moment, but that's what I was able to gather. If that information's different, staff will follow up with the city manager.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for hustling down. You had to come down anyway, didn't you? Okay, anyone else? Okay, if not, that will lead us into executive session. How long do we need?
Yeah, if you want to do 25 minutes, and what would that be, an additional 7-minute break that'd bring you back at 5:30?
Okay.
That'll work. Mr. Mayor, I move the City Commission recess into an executive session for 25 minutes after a 7-minute break to discuss the special legal counsel, the subject to confidential legal considerations relating to the points of negotiation with Salina Destination Development, LLC, regarding the city's multifamily housing project based upon the need for consultation with an attorney for the public body, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship pursuant to KSA 75-4319, Section B, subsection 2. The open meeting will resume in this room at 5:30 p.m.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to move into executive session with a 7-minute break, returning to the open meeting at 5:30. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And would you like to explain
Yeah,
who's
so-
going to be in that meeting with us?
Attendees will include myself, legal counsel Greg Bankson, outside legal counsel Steve Sparks, outside financial counsel Matt Webster, deputy city manager Jacob Wood, assistant city manager Sean Hennessy, and director of community development services Lauren Driscoll.
Okay.
And we do not anticipate action when we return.
Okay, we'll be back in this room at 5:30. Okay, we are back in session and we have no action to take at this time. So I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We will see everyone back here next Monday.